Senne Lammens to Manchester United is now pretty much a done deal. A couple of weeks ago, I gave you guys my initial thoughts on him as a goalkeeper. Today, we are going to focus on his distribution, talk about what he would bring to United on the ball. And the reason why we're going to do that is because a certain man called Altay Bayindir, despite being a slightly shaky goalkeeper, has actually had a phenomenal start to the season with his distribution. In the first game against Arsenal, he was very useful helping us play out in the first phase, and then in the game against Fulham, he was the only player to create a big chance for Manchester United. So for Lammens to be successful, he does need to be a player that can play on the ball. His stats, his numbers don't look too bad at all, but what does the eye tell us? Now, rather than looking at his passing game as just one whole big thing to focus on, I'm actually going to break this up into a few different segments, talking about his shorter passing, then more of his clipped sort of medium passing range, and then his more direct passing. Starting off with his short passing, and the first thing that I want to focus on is his mentality, his composure, his confidence, and his calmness on the ball. You can see him on the ball in this position here, of course over here in the net, and you can see the opposition in a position ready to press. What I like about Lammens here is his confidence on the ball. Now, I think almost too much is made at times of a player putting their studs on the ball. I'm personally a fan of it. I think it exudes confidence. It shows that a player is comfortable with the ball at their feet. It doesn't necessarily show quality. It doesn't prove that he's going to be an amazing ball-playing goalkeeper. But when we see him in a situation like this, with the opposition player, right there, and he's still got the studs on the ball, to me that shows a player that is quite relaxed. He's not frantic in this moment. You can see his body language here is incredibly calm, and I think that's important for a goalkeeper, to have a calming presence which sort of spreads through the rest of the team, and I think Lammens on the ball does bring that. In terms of when it actually comes to his passing, I think he's pretty good with his short-range passing, and pretty two-footed, I would say. You can see here, receiving the ball from the left-hand side, and because he's two-footed, it gets him out of a bit of trouble, because as this ball comes across here, he's happy to play the pass with his left foot. If he was right-footed, strongly right-footed, or biased towards the right foot, it would take him a moment to sort this ball out, get it out of his feet, before then playing the pass, which would potentially allow this opposition player to come in and apply pressure. But because he's willing to play it with his left first time, and also he knows where the free man is, he's got that level of intelligence, it allows him to move the ball quite quickly, and his side can move from the back. We can see once again here, Lammens in the middle of the pitch with the ball at his feet, actually just outside the box, again with his studs on the ball, which doesn't prove quality, but it does prove something about his mentality, his comfort, his calmness, his confidence on the ball. And then here, he actually picks out a really nice pass through the lines. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say to you that I think he's an amazing line breaker. Andre Onana at Inter, there was a lot of evidence that he could move the ball through the lines. I'm not sure that this young man has the evidence. He almost doesn't have the sample size for me to be able to say that with true confidence. There isn't enough footage of him whilst playing in Belgium of really playing out under pressure. When he is playing through the first phase, I think some of it is nice through the lines, but more typically what I've seen has tended to be wider passes. But what I do like is he does seem to know where the free man is. So here, receiving the ball from the left-hand side, he sort of knows that forward pressing him is going to curve his run to apply pressure, forcing him to the right-hand side. But he knows that and sort of allows for that and caters for that. He allows the ball to roll across his body, get the ball onto his right foot, and then play out from the back. So I think that two-footedness with the composure could be really useful. Now, the next thing that I want to look at is a bit more of a clipped pass. We're not necessarily going much more direct here, but we're just talking about playing a slightly different angle and a different trajectory of pass. It's great being able to play out from the back, and I think Lammens would be useful for that. But for me, I always feel that one of the most important passes for a goalkeeper to possess is the ability to clip the ball out to the fullback regions, because so often we will see a team under pressure in the deep phase. The opposition are going to come forward, they're going to squeeze nice and high. I just think if you can get that clip pass right out towards the fullback zones, I think it's a really effective way of relieving pressure, particularly if the ball sort of starts on one side and the opposition are crowded over here. If you can go back and then clip over the opposition and play a pass which is empathetic, it's a pass that you can control, it's a pass that you can get down and play on your stronger foot, I think that can be really useful. It's something that David De Gea, for example, actually struggled with quite a lot with his passing. This was one of the issues he had. United would often have the spare man out on the far side in a fairly deep position, but United couldn't quite access it with De Gea. I think Lammens is a player, on the other hand, who does. Andre Onana is also pretty good at this, but I think Lammens is good at it, and even under pressure. On this occasion, he receives the ball from the left-hand side, and this is what we're talking about, changing the angle for the team, changing the direction of the attack. You can see him getting his head up. Now, on this occasion, it's a little bit close for comfort. Personally, I would like him to work his feet a little bit quicker here. He very nearly loses possession, but he does keep his calm, and that is important. He does manage to find the long ball out to the right-hand side. In the same game, we've got him again here in the middle, this time with much more time, but it's that ability to go out towards the other side. This would put the task onto someone like Patrick Dorgu or Ahmad or Dallo to then be bringing this ball down, which isn't always easy. But I think Lammens is good with his passing into these positions. You can see it again here. He lifts it over the pressing players. He's taking players out of the game with this pass, and if the pass is good, your team can then move forward quite quickly. Now again, for me personally, what I've seen, the sample size is relatively small. There isn't loads of footage of this that I've been able to access. One thing I have just picked up on is, for me, he becomes a little bit more one-footed here. I think with his short game, he's quite two-footed. I think with his long game, which we'll discuss in a second, again, he's quite two-footed. The medium range, these sort of clipped balls out to the wing-backs, or the full-backs, he feels a bit more right-footed. You know, there's a bit more of a bias. He seems to want it on his right. I think, particularly if he's rushed on his left, I think the ball goes a bit too high at times, sometimes when he's distributing it. And essentially, if the ball is going high, we're losing the effect of playing quickly. If this ball loops up in the air and takes ages to get to Dorgu, it's going to give the opposition time to get back into their position, but also actually challenge the header. So that is something that I would probably like to see him working on with his distribution, sort of getting that consistency under pressure. When he's got time, I think both feet are good, but under pressure, that left foot sort of lacks the subtlety that the right possesses. Now, the final thing that I want to discuss is the young man's long passing, and for me, I think this can be a little bit tricky sometimes when we're assessing goalkeepers, because so many goalkeepers' long passes are not going to be successful. So many occasions you're going to play a ball long, and realistically, 9 times out of 10, the centre-backs are facing the ball, they've got momentum coming towards the ball. They are favourites in those positions. They are expected to win those balls. So I don't think stats are too important here. Instead, what we have to do is go through more to the eye test and look at habits of where he's passing, how he's passing, the height with which he's passing. In terms of habits, first off, like I hinted at earlier, I think in this part of the game, Lammens goes back to being a two-footed player. I think immediately, again, he can play off both feet. Again, I think under pressure, he needs work. I think sometimes when if you sort of go into the middle of the pitch with the ball, and then the opposition press you and force you backwards a little bit, and then continue the chase forward, and that ball is sort of rolling back to the goalkeeper. It's got a little bit of backspin on it, and they've got to clear it. I think he can be a little bit inconsistent there. I think that's the case for a lot of goalkeepers, to be honest. They often struggle with this technique. You can get too much spin on the ball, and it sort of just loops up in the air into a really dangerous position, or you sort of scuff it and put your team in danger. So I think Lammens has that issue a little bit, but it's not a major concern. It's not necessarily a weakness in his game. Again, I think the fact that he can use both feet helps. Sometimes we'll see a goalkeeper receiving the ball, particularly a back pass, on their weak foot, and they just can't deal with it. They try and clear it up the pitch, but they're going to scuff it. Because Lammens is two-footed, he's a bit more balanced, so I think the overall quality could go up here, but I don't think one foot is necessarily weaker than the other. In terms of the style of pass that he's playing, I'm actually quite impressed. I wouldn't label Lammens as a ball-playing specialist in goal, but I think he's got something really nice about his long passing, like this one here. It doesn't go too high, and I think that's very important. Again, like we spoke about earlier with the clipped pass out to the fullback, if a ball is going really high, like really getting some airtime before coming down, the striker or the forwards really can end up under the ball, and they're looking so high up that they can't actually battle the centre-back behind him as well. It becomes very difficult, and I think it gives the centre-back the advantage at that point, because I think it gives the centre-back the ability to come over the top of the striker and win the header in those situations and actually be more physical. I think when you are playing the ball a bit low, a bit flatter, so you're not getting as much loop on it, it's a bit of a flatter pass, I think that starts to give a forward a bit more of an advantage. And the reason for that is because now they can use their body more, because suddenly now their body is between ball and opposition, so when it's really high, they can't get their body in the way as well. Whereas if the ball's coming a bit flatter, I think you can use your body a little bit easier. I think it's more suited to someone like Benjamin Sesko. I can imagine him certainly bringing down some of Lammens' long passes because they've got that flat drive to them forward into the striker. I think that would allow Sesko to bring the ball down and then get others into the game, from where hopefully United can be dangerous this season. We also know that I think United have got something out wide to aim for this year. particularly when we push, the two physical inside forwards a little bit wider. But we also get the wing backs involved as well. We do have that potential ability to go 2 versus 1. And again, that flat-driven pass, I think, really gives Mbumo and Cunha the chance to control the ball, use their size and intelligence to pin the opposition off and hold them off before then looking to turn and play forward. I think that could be really useful. Now again, like I said in my first video on Lammens, I'm not convinced he's a ball-playing specialist. I don't think he's an amazing passer, but I do think he's incredibly solid. I think he's calm, which is important, although that would be tested at a bigger club where the scrutiny is mental. Just look at the club this week. So I think that would be interesting, an interesting assessment, an interesting test for how composed he truly is. If he can carry on what he's been doing in Belgium and bring that sort of level of calm at United, that would be seriously impressive and say a lot about his mentality. I think technically, I like him. I think his short passing is simple. I don't think he's overly incisive playing through the lines, although perhaps I just haven't seen the right footage. But I like that he's two-footed. A player that can play with their right foot and their left foot allows them to get out of trouble a little bit easier, which goalkeepers need, right? I don't think we always need the most specialist goalkeeper. We need someone who's going to be steady in goal, and I think Lammens on the ball will be that. Of course, the occasional mistake, I think we expect that from all goalkeepers, particularly young ones. He could be 8 years away from his peak yet. This is recruiting potential, but also a player that can play already. In terms of his distribution, I think he would be good for Manchester United. I don't think an absolute game changer. I don't think he brings a certain tactical weapon which transforms United, but I think he will be very, very useful and help United to play in the first phase. But perhaps more importantly, with those medium and longer range passes, I think he could make a real difference. But those are just my thoughts. I'm not a goalkeeping expert. Perhaps you guys could help me out in the comments down below. What do you make of Lammens, his passing ability, and also more of the general goalkeeping stuff, which we covered in that other video a few weeks ago? Let me know what you think in the comments, and also whilst you're there, if you could please leave a like and subscribe, that would be amazing. But apart from that, we've finished for today. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.